In 2015, if you're reading this, it's too late dropped out of nowhere, sending shockwaves through the music industry. Now, 10 years later, it remains one of the most pivotal moments in Drake's career. More than just a surprise project, it was a statement, raw, aggressive, and influential in ways that still echo in modern hip-hop. Welcome back to Rap Pizza, where we'll be looking back at 10 years of OVO legacy. If you enjoy, please hit like and subscribe to the channel. Now let's jump in. If you're reading this was a turning point in how Drake presented himself. Prior to this, he was still seen as the emotional, introspective rapper-singer hybrid. This project, however, was Drake at his most cutthroat. No pop-leaning singles, no overt love songs, just bars, confidence, and aggression. While Drake was already working with a strong team, if you're reading this, helped put several names on the map. A few examples being Wonder Girl. At just 18, her production on Used To, featuring Lil Wayne, further solidified her as a rising star. Also Quentin Miller, the reference track controversy. More on that later, put him in the limelight, though not in the way he probably hoped, as well as boosting the career of Party Next Door. Already on OVO, his contributions to the album reinforced his role as a key collaborator. This album was also the catalyst for the ghost writing scandal, which still hangs over Drake in the modern era. In July 2015, Meek Mill accused Drake of not writing his own raps, citing Quentin Miller as his ghostwriter. Reference tracks of Miller rapping early versions of 10 Bands and Know Yourself leaked, fueling debates over whether Drake was truly a top-tier MC. While Drake responded with the legendary diss track back-to-back, the accusations never fully went away and changed how some viewed his pen game. Despite this, the controversy did little to slow him down. If anything, it only made him more untouchable around this time. For a mixtape, if you're reading this was a massive commercial success. Debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 with 535,000 equivalent album units in its first week. Every track charted on the Billboard Hot 100, making Drake the first artist to achieve that in history. Eventually certified 2x Platinum by the RIA. If You're Reading This was also nominated for Best Rap Album at the 2016 Grammy Awards, but lost to Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly. Back-to-back, technically not on the tape, but part of its era, was nominated for Best Rap Performance. While it didn't dominate award shows, its cultural influence far outweighed its accolades. The biggest shift If You're Reading This created was the way artists approached mixtapes and albums. It blurred the line between the two. This was technically a mixtape, but it was sold on iTunes, streaming services, and performed like a traditional album. After this, artists like Future with DS2, Travis Scott with Birds and the Trap Sing McKnight, and even Kanye with The Life of Pablo leaned into looser, more experimental projects that felt less polished but still major. Almost 10 years before music industry titans like Kendrick Lamar and Tyler the Creator harnessed the power of dropping albums without a rollout, Drake was among the first major artists to perfect the surprise album strategy. If You're Reading This was released on February 13, 2015, with no prior announcement, catching fans, critics, and the industry off guard. The aforementioned Kendrick's GNX and Tyler the Creator's Chromacopia were two of the most commercially successful albums last year, both of which followed the surprise drop formula, proving that this continues to be a strong release strategy a decade later. However, behind the scenes, this was more than just a creative decision. It was strategic. Reports surfaced that Drake released this project to fulfill his contractual obligation to Cash Money Records, allowing him to move toward independence. While never officially confirmed, it added to the mystique of the drop and fueled rumors of label tension. Instead of launching a dedicated tour for If You're Reading This, It's Too Late, Drake incorporated the project heavily into his Jungle Tour and, by extension, the Summer 16 tour with Future. Although the latter was closer to the release of his 2016 album Views, the momentum built from his abrupt If You're Reading This run would be a huge driver for its popularity and ticket sales. The Jungle Tour was short and exclusive. Unlike his previous full-length tours, the Jungle Tour was a mini-tour with only 6 dates across North America. The set list was heavy with If You're Reading This tracks. Songs like Energy, 10 Bands, Know Yourself, and Legend were core parts of the show. Special guests, Future, Party Next Door, and other OVO artists made appearances. Unlike Nothing was the same in views, this era never had a massive global rollout, most likely, because If You're Reading This was considered a mixtape rather than a traditional album, since it was a contract filler move to get out of Cash Money. Drake might not have wanted to invest in a full promotional cycle. The surprise drop nature of the album, lack of planned rollout or official tour, made it clear he was already shifting focus to Views, which dropped in 2016 and became his most commercially successful album. Even without a dedicated tour, the energy of If You're Reading This carried into his performances for years, especially Know Yourself, which remains a staple in his live shows. 10 years later, If You're Reading This remains one of the last times Drake felt truly unpredictable, compared to modern Drake. In terms of sound evolution, his music has leaned more into pop, Afrobeats, and dance post the 2016 Views era, whereas If You're Reading This was fully rap-centric. Persona Shift 2015 Drake was aggressive and hungry. 2024 Drake is wealthier, more detached, and some argue, more formulaic. Album strategy, If You're Reading This was tight and focused. Modern Drake albums like Certified Lover Boy and For All the Dogs are often longer and more bloated. Cultural standing. In 2015, Drake was at his peak in terms of cultural dominance. Now, with challengers like Kendrick, Travis Scott, and newer artists emerging, he's more of an established mogul than the disruptor he once was. If You're Reading This remains one of Drake's most important projects, not just for what it did for his career, but for its lasting influence on hip-hop. It set trends in production, album rollouts, and artistic branding that still define the industry today. Even if the legend talkin' legend was premature at the time, 10 years later, it's hard to argue against it. So, where do you place If You're Reading This in your overall ranking of Drake's discography? Will you give it a revisit for its 10th birthday? Let us know in the comments. For now, it's peace out from Rap Pizza. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching.